And when Trump leaves office, let's see who he pardons prophylactically going forward.
Well, so he might, because the precedent was set. You're right.
No, but hold on a second, Michael. You don't live your life that way, do you? If somebody kicks a dog, do you say the precedent has been set and then you go around kicking dogs? No. You know, you have your own principles, you have your own standards.
If one side of the political aisle is threatening to jail you and your associates, then you have to react to that, especially if the other side has set the precedent.
Well, but the precedent that was set was that you knew that Trump was going to go after Biden and all his people because of what they tried to do to his son, right? So that's what he was protecting against.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So, Chris Cuomo recently debated Michael Knowles on his NewsNation show. Just days before stepping down as Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard announced she's releasing new documents regarding a controversial government-funded scientific research program. She claims these records expose a former top health official for lying to Congress and the intelligence community to cover up his actions. This immediately sparked a wild argument over whether it's a genuine scandal or just another baseless political attack. Comment yes if you think public officials should face legal consequences for using overly narrow technical definitions under oath, or comment no if you think relying on precise scientific definitions is exactly what experts are supposed to do. Let's get into the video.
Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just days away from exiting the administration. Now, she says she's leaving because her husband is dealing with a serious illness. I wish him well. I wish her well going forward. She went out talking about Tony Fauci, and here are her allegations.
On my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never-before-seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives.
Now, I have two problems, okay? One, I believe if they had proof that Tony Fauci had anything to do with COVID-19, they would have put it out, okay? Just like the reason they're spending so much time keeping the Epstein stuff quiet is because they don't want you to see it. If they had it, they would put it out. I feel the same way about Trump and Russia connections. If there was ever anything really there, they would have put it out. If there was anything really super damning about Trump and human trafficking and Epstein, the Democrats would have put it out. You understand what I'm saying? That's number one. Number two, these are very heavy allegations. Did you hear the outgoing DNI say she knows that the virus, COVID-19, came from a lab leak? No. So she doesn't know that. Okay. Did you hear her say that she knows that the research that she believes Tony Fauci lied about led to COVID-19? No, you didn't hear her say that. Is that in any of these documents? No, it isn't. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about here? I don't understand. Let's bring in Michael Knowles. Okay. And look, I'm going to have this conversation with Rand Paul also, because he also believes this. All right. Michael Knowles is the host of the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Michael.
No, thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
So we want to talk about gain of function and whether his definition was too narrow and self-serving. I'm here for it. You want to talk about whether or not the lab leak should have gotten more attention earlier on and whether or not Tony Fauci should have been more aggressive about that. I'm here for it. But what are we talking about here? Do you believe that Tony Fauci funded something that led to COVID-19?
Well, we know for a fact that Tony Fauci, with your and my taxpayer dollars, funded the kind of research at the exact place where COVID-19 started. And we also know for a fact that he lied about it. So this is the real issue here. You bring up to your first point. You say that Fauci might have used in his testimony before the Senate in 2021 a too narrow definition of gain of function. That's putting it very diplomatically. He said emphatically that he did not fund gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He did. He was using a very, very narrow definition from 2019 that is sort of akin to a 24-year-old denying that he's an adult, because by a very, very narrow psychological definition, you could say the brain doesn't fully develop until 25.
But Michael,
I mean, technically, you can try to say it, but
Michael, here's my pushback. I get it. You don't. Here's the difference. If you said it, I'd say that. If I said it, you'd say that. And I think we'd be fair in that criticism. Tony Fauci is a scientist. This is a real definition that is a regulatory definition. And I can tell you this, Tony Fauci believes in the distinction that the type of experiments that were funded should not have led to gain of function. Now you have a second question. Let's say some grand jury agrees with you and not me and not Tony. Okay. There is no indication that any of the research that the United States or any of its associates had to do with led to COVID-19 because we don't even know that it came from the lab. I believe it did, but I can't prove it.
Yeah, I don't think it came from a bad batch of pangolin soup. So you're right. We can't draw yet a direct connection between those things.
This right here is exactly how you handle right-wing conspiracy theories. You do not let them just throw out buzzwords and run away. You corner them with basic logic. Chris Cuomo completely dismantled the conservative outrage machine right from the start. He pointed out the most obvious flaw in their entire narrative. He said that if the conservative side actually had undeniable proof of these massive conspiracies, they would have leaked it immediately. We all know this is true. They are obsessed with political theater. If they had the smoking gun they have been promising for years, it would be on every screen in America, but they do not have it. Instead, they rely on vague implications and twisting words. When Michael Knowles tries to attack a dedicated public servant by claiming he lied about complex scientific funding, Chris Cuomo steps in with a massive reality check. Chris Cuomo pointed out that the doctor is a scientist, and the definition he used is a real regulatory definition. This is the difference between actual governance and conservative talk radio. The right wing wants everything to be a dramatic movie plot. They want a clear villain they can point their fingers at, but the real world runs on strict legal and scientific definitions. You cannot just invent a crime because you do not like the exact legally binding phrasing a scientist used during a congressional hearing. It is infuriating to watch people who have no background in science or public policy sit in studios and try to criminalize the careful, precise language used by experts. They are playing a dangerous game. They are trying to tell their audience that a strict regulatory definition is somehow a malicious lie, just because it does not fit their wild conspiracy theories. Chris Cuomo even pushed back hard on the outgoing director of national intelligence. Chris Cuomo asked if anyone actually heard her say she knows the virus came from a lab leak, and then he answered his own question with a flat no. That is the entire conservative playbook right there. They make you feel like they dropped a bombshell, but when you actually look at the documents, when you actually listen to the words, there is absolutely nothing there. It is a giant nothing burger designed to keep their base angry and paranoid. They desperately need their followers to believe there is a massive deep state cover-up, because if they admit the truth, which is that government and science are just complicated and imperfect, they lose their ability to grift their audience. Chris Cuomo did an incredible job of stripping away the dramatic music and forcing the conservative guest to admit that he cannot actually draw a direct connection between the research and the global crisis. It is all smoke and mirrors.
But that's not even the issue that the DNI is alleging. The point is, and the problem for Fauci is, that he perjured himself, I think pretty clearly in that 2021 Senate testimony, because you make a good point. He's a scientist, but he was in that instance speaking to politicians and the public using the ordinary, even by ordinary technical standards, definition of gain of function. But put that aside. That's already termed out by the statute of limitations. The other issue you mentioned to your second point.
If you don't have an intention to deceive, Michael. It's a legal question.
Sure. So I'm.
It's not perjury if you don't have an intention to deceive.
But this is the problem, Chris, because it brings you to your second point. You say maybe Fauci should have been more aggressive in pursuing the lab leak theory. He actually was very aggressive. That's part of the documents that Tulsi released. And this is where he committed his real crime, and it was clear perjury. In 2024, Tony Fauci said under oath that he did not have conversations with the intelligence community about the origin of COVID-19. But he did. We now know that from CIA briefings. We know that from whistleblowers. We know that from lots of documents from the intelligence community. So that was clear perjury, and that's within the statute of limitations. He was aggressive. He was trying to cover this up. He knew that he had funded broad definition gain of function research with EcoHealth Alliance at the place where, on the viruses where COVID started. So there was clear deception there. The only reason he won't be held to account is because Joe Biden gave him an unprecedented blanket pardon.
Well, but look, listen, you really want to talk the pardon talk with what Trump is doing? Seriously?
Yeah, it was
Seriously.
totally unprecedented.
Seriously.
Yeah, I seriously do, because we've never seen a pardon like the Joe Biden blanket pardons.
Everybody who can put money in his family's pocket, and you want to talk about pardons? Please. Lawfare is well out of control,
are for specific crimes.
And we know it.
But Chris, you're missing the point, because this is pertinent to Fauci. Yes, Trump has pardoned a lot of people.
I get
this is an important
prophylactic.
distinction. Trump has pardoned a lot of people. Bill Clinton pardoned a lot of people. But with the Biden pardons, they were blanket pardons for unspecified crimes. You're right. It's not like this.
I get
it's far well beyond
the
American
when Trump
record.
leaves office, let's see who he pardons prophylactically going forward.
Well,
so
he might, because the precedent was set. You're right.
No, but hold on a second, Michael. You don't live your life that way, do you? If somebody kicks a dog, do you say the precedent has been set and then you go around kicking dogs? No. You know, you have your own principles, you have your own standards.
If one side of the political aisle is threatening to jail you and your associates, then you have to react to that, especially if the other side has set the precedent.
Well, but the precedent that was set was that you knew that Trump was going to go after Biden and all his people because of what they tried to do to his son, right? So that's what he was protecting
preemptive pardon,
against.
sure,
Look,
however you want to
like
justify it. Fine.
Look, Michael, I don't want to justify it. I hate all of it. I hate the parties. I want the whole thing to die. You got the wrong guy. I will say this one other thing that I want you to consider as we go forward.
Oh my goodness. The moment Chris Cuomo dropped that dog analogy, the debate was entirely over. Michael Knowles completely exposed the broken moral compass of the modern conservative movement right there in real time. Michael Knowles tries to pivot away from his weak conspiracy theories by complaining about preemptive presidential pardons, acting absolutely outraged. But Chris Cuomo traps him perfectly. Chris Cuomo asked him this: if somebody kicks a dog, do you say the president has been set, and then you go around kicking dogs? And of course, the guest had to admit no. But that is exactly what the right wing does every single day. They constantly try to justify their own extreme, unprincipled actions by pointing fingers and crying about what the other side supposedly did first. It is the ultimate playground excuse, but they are using it at the highest levels of government. Michael Knowles tries to act horrified about blanket pardons, while completely ignoring the historically unprecedented abuse of the pardon power that came from his own favorite administration. The hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a knife. They only care about rules, precedents, and norms when they can weaponize them against liberals. When it is their team abusing power, suddenly it is just playing the game, or it is a necessary reaction to the big bad left. It is pure projection. Whenever conservatives get caught doing something wrong, they scream that it is lawfare. They act like they are eternal victims. But when you ask them to stand by a basic ethical standard, like not kicking a dog just because someone else did, their entire worldview collapses. Michael Knowles tried to argue that in 2024, the doctor said under oath that he did not have conversations with the intelligence community. He tries to frame this as some massive gotcha moment for perjury. But again, it falls completely flat because they do not have the context or the actual proof of malicious intent. They are desperately grasping at straws. They take routine bureaucratic interactions and try to spin them into treason. It is pathetic. They cannot win on policy. They cannot win on actual scientific facts. So they resort to this endless, exhausting cycle of manufactured legal drama. And watching Chris Cuomo force him to admit that their justifications are completely morally bankrupt was incredibly satisfying. You have to hold them to their own standards, because if you do not, they will just keep moving the goalposts until they get the exact outcome they want.
The U.S. intelligence agencies have had every opportunity to come out and echo what you're putting out about Fauci. They never have. Even under Trump's control, no one has come out, except Tulsi, who's leaving, and
Chris,
said what
that
she's
isn't
saying
true, though.
right now.
You had that. But that isn't true. You had multiple whistleblowers from within the IC in these documents.
That's not the
you
same.
have the documents
That's not the
themselves,
same.
and then furthermore, Chris, this is the main point. The director of national intelligence came out and said it. So it's like saying, no baseball player ever did this, that, or the other than Aaron Judge. He's the biggest one.
On her way out, she's saying this. Nobody came out officially from U.S. intelligence and said this or said that Iran was weeks away from having a nuke. And I believe both of these
Chris,
things
but
matter.
they followed protocol,
because they don't
and
want
they
to
blew
go
the whistle.
They don't want to go on the record about Tony Fauci. I'm telling you, we can make a little side bet. You can indict anything. Nobody's convicting Tony Fauci of anything like this.
No, they won't because of the pardon. I agree with you. I'm
but
not going to put my money on the line. Because of the pardon, they won't.
No. Separate and apart from the pardon. I'm saying any satisfactory basis. But let's stay on this. Let's stay on what comes out. You always have an open invitation to discuss it. I'm just saying an allegation is one thing.
Thank you, Chris.
Corroboration is something different. No, hey, listen, not everybody wants to have you on,
It's
Michael,
unfalsifiable.
right?
I know, and listen, no, I'll take any invitation I can get. It's unfalsifiable, but I tell you what, I would put my money down that he would be held guilty for the 2024 perjury. Not the 2021, I agree there's wiggle room. The 2024, they got him dead to rights.
Well, they only have him dead to rights if someone from the intelligence community, not a whistleblower, someone comes out and says, yeah, we wanted to say this, but Tony wouldn't let us. Not a whistleblower.
No,
it's
the perjury was that he hadn't. The perjury was that he hadn't had the conversations. It's in the CIA memoranda.
But a conversation is not he forced them not to do something or make a judgment. He doesn't have any power over the CIA.
Right.
He doesn't have any power over the U.S.
intelligence
agencies.
He also pressured them, but the perjury was merely about broaching the topic with the intelligence community.
I gotta go. They're yelling at me about time. Michael, we'll keep talking about this. I promise you that. Okay? This is just the beginning, not the end. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.
This is the part that blows my mind. This is where the absolute core of the conservative grift is laid bare for everyone to see. The absolute refusal of the right wing to provide actual evidence for their claim. Chris Cuomo dropped the absolute hammer when he stated that the United States intelligence agencies have had every opportunity to come out and echo these claims, and they never have, even when under conservative control. Let that sink in. They had the power, they had the agencies, they had the mandate, and they still could not produce the evidence to back up these wild accusations. Why? Because the evidence does not exist. This is the central issue with the modern right-wing media apparatus. They live entirely in the realm of allegations. They never want to produce the receipts. Chris Cuomo told him straight up that an allegation is one thing, but corroboration is something entirely different. That right there is the line between journalism and propaganda. The conservative ecosystem thrives on propaganda. They throw out a million massive allegations, hoping their viewers will just assume where there is smoke, there is fire. But they never actually show you the fire. Let me break down why this matters using a crucial piece of American history. You have to understand that this tactic of destroying people through baseless allegations is not new. Back in the 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy did the exact same thing during the Red Scare. He would stand in front of cameras, waving a blank piece of paper, screaming that he had a secret list of government workers who were secretly working to destroy America. He destroyed careers. He ruined lives. He created mass panic across the entire country. But here is the kicker. He never actually produced the evidence. The fear was the point. The allegation was the weapon. He did not need proof because the media circus did the work for him. That is exactly the playbook being used today against our public health officials and scientists. They want the spectacle. They want the viral clip. They want the outrage to generate click and donations. They do not care about the truth because the truth requires actual, hard evidence, and they have absolutely none. They want to criminalize political disagreements. They want to lock up public servants who dedicated their lives to keeping people safe, all because those public servants had to make difficult decisions during an unprecedented crisis. When Chris Cuomo presses him on the fact that no official intelligence agency has ever backed up these claims, Michael Knowles just pivots to talking about random whistleblowers and documents that do not actually prove what he claims they prove. It is a constant shell game. We have to stop letting them get away with this. We have to demand evidence. Every single time they make a massive claim on television or online, we need to ask for the corroboration. We cannot let them slide by on vibes and manufactured outrage. When they cannot prove their claims, they need to be laughed out of the room. The fact that they are still trying to push these debunked narratives years later shows just how desperate they are to avoid talking about actual policies that help everyday working Americans. They would rather talk about fake conspiracies than healthcare, wages, or infrastructure. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.